Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of El Niño Speaks. I'm your host, Jose Niño, and today I'm joined by Mike Peinovich, the host of The Right Stuff, and one of the sharpest voices when it comes to geopolitics and analyzing Jewish power in the West and across the globe. How are you this evening, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks. Appreciate it. That's high praise. I hope I'm worthy of it, but I try to be. But thanks a lot for inviting me. This should be fun.
Yeah, no problem. No, it's always good to chat with you because I've been a follower of your show for years, and I find that you are able to cut through a lot of the BS. Yeah, let's just start off on the biggest news of the past few days in the Middle East of is Israel's decapitation strike on the Yemeni government.
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on this event, and how does it shape the overall strategic chessboard over there in the Middle East?
Well, I don't think. I mean, it's not going to take out the Houthi government, right? The Houthi government. I know in Yemen there's three different factions. One is really tiny. The Houthis are the biggest and most powerful. They have the most populous areas. If you look at a map, Yemen. If you look on war mapping sites and such,
yeah,
and it's all over the place, right? But the main population centers are run by the Houthis. There's a few places that are run by the Saudi-backed groups by the Saudi border, and those groups are effectively proxies of the U.S. and Israel, as always with the Saudis, right? And then there's some other random groups, there was some ISIS in the desert someplace. I don't even know. But it's the main power is the Houthis, and the Houthis actually developed significant military capabilities. I mean, even despite everything, that they survived the war with essentially a war with Saudi Arabia, which was just going on for 15 years and nobody was paying any attention to it. And America would occasionally join in and shoot some bombs their way, but never managed to take them out. This isn't going to take them out. They thought they had gotten, these were civilian ministers. So to me, this was just a petty rage. This was just impotent rage by the Jews, right? It was now Jews can do assassinations, right? In fact, a country with the intelligence and the technical capabilities of Israel could do a lot of assassinations. And they seem to have just been they're like a dog off the chain since October 7th. They're just doing them, and they don't really result in political gains for the Jews because there's no strategic gain against Yemen from the strike. They will just put new ministers in their place. And this is also what they also came out. I don't know if you saw this article that came out in the New York Times, I think 2 days ago now, front page. Or was it yesterday? Well, today's Sunday. So yeah, it was Friday. Friday morning, New York Times front page story was just bragging, practically glowing article about how the Jews had targeted the Iranian top level leadership and the first day of the so-called Donald Trump and they'll dub it the 12-day war. And this was, and they said, they got them because a lot of these government ministers had private bodyguards that were breaking security protocol and using WhatsApp on their phones and stuff. And the whole pager attack in Lebanon came because Hezbollah was well, we know that Jews can get into cell phones, so we're going to use these pagers. Of course, they got into that too. But again, that is lauded as some kind of massive, incredibly awesome intelligence operation. But really what it was just hijacking international shipping and wiring. It's just criminal behavior, right? America could do that. A lot of governments could do, the Russians could do something like that. America could do something like that. A lot of government level agencies and intelligence agencies can accomplish something like that. It's just not done. And likewise, you go and blow up the prime minister of Yemen while he's at some building planning meeting or something like this. It's what are you doing? You're just angry. You're just pissing and shitting and farting. They're just pissed. And so they're we're just going to hit. And they thought they had other people. They thought they had the defense minister, but he wasn't there. He has since proved that he's still alive. So they only got civilian. These are civilian government people. They're not even military people, right? So these aren't even valid military targets. So it's and they of course have never gotten Malik al-Houthi himself. Although maybe they'll get him someday. Who knows?
But they got saying al-Houthi, but that was years ago.
Yeah, that was a while ago, right?
Yeah.
And supposedly they've gotten Abu Obaida. They now are claiming Abu Obaida, and I thought that guy was going to live 5. First of all, I also thought like I was always thought it was like more than one Abu Obaida. Like I didn't know. I mean, I guess it's
That's a Hamas spokesman.
Yes, the Al Qassam Brigade's spokesperson specifically, not just Hamas, but like specifically the military wing spokesperson. And he was sort of one of they've chewed through the whole top level military leadership of Hamas and Qassam brigades in the war. But like, so what? You know, I mean, I'm not that it doesn't hurt or that it's not bad, but a lot of that I think it shows it's kind of a very Jewish mindset. And the Jewish mindset is this PR, right? Like this is bragging rights for Israel. This is to make Jews feel powerful, make them feel big shots, right? Oh, look at that! So look at you, the whole like we're watching everywhere. You're not safe anywhere. We can reach anybody, right? But you can't stop the ballistic missiles though, and you can't stop the blockade on the Red Sea. So you can do this, but like even America comes in and has 6-week bombing campaign, didn't stop the blockade. I mean, after we stopped that bombing campaign, the Yemenis took out some ships. I mean, they were still sinking ships in the Red Sea. There were Israeli line. They did another one today. Another Israel line ship today was hit with a missile in the Red Sea. So, like, again, I don't know that it's really it's just a crime, basically. You know, they're just like the Jewish government is just criminals. Like they're just criminals. So there's really nothing, you know. And eventually, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying not to fall into just world fallacy. Like eventually, they're going to pay for this shit. But yeah, no, it's just a crime. I don't think it alters the strategic situation very much at all. Particularly because the Yemenis are used to, you know, like a lot of these ideological, particularly Shiite groups. Their martyrdom is like. They're like, if I don't die in battle, if I don't die in battle, I'm a cuck. So it's like, yeah, it's like, all right, you know, and the people that are going to fight Israel, the hardest are going to be we know we're going to die. Like, I mean, when Hamas did the raid on October 7th, a lot of the Hamas soldiers that went into Israel knew they were not going to live. They knew they were going to die. A lot of Hamas fighters, when they go out to meet the Jewish tanks in like the rubble of Khan Yunis or Rafah or Gaza City, they expect to die. Like this is you have to just respect it. You know what I mean? Like they're not, they're willing to make the sacrifice. Like far be it from me to criticize that. Like that's just courage. Like I don't know. So I just give them props for that. I just give them like praise for their courage. Like it's unbelievable. So I don't think this is going to change things. You'd have to kill. Like this is where Israel they're so frustrated by the whole thing because they're like. Population that is like that is difficult, even no matter what kind of conditions you reduce them to, and the place you put them in, like it's very difficult to defeat them. They still haven't defeated Hamas. It's 2 years and they still haven't. I mean, we had those. I don't know if you saw the rumors a couple of days ago of the big operation by Hamas, big ambush in Gaza City in the Zaytun neighborhood, which is in kind of like southern central.
They like took 4 hostages or something.
I don't know now because I was convinced that they had, because what happened was like I think the Jews are downplaying their casualties because there was, when you look at the Palestinian Telegram channels, they might exaggerate things a little bit, but actually not so much because Hamas also gives receipts. Like they put video out when they can. Like sometimes video doesn't survive. If somebody gets killed that was taking the video, or the cameras get blown up. Like there's sometimes you see these Hamas videos, you see them like planting a bomb, and then you see them like putting the camera near where they've got the bomb. The tank comes like, yeah, we don't have video of it. It's like blew up their own camera in the ambush. But like, nonetheless, they do give receipts on, like they do go out and they do hit and they do get kills. And when this whole thing was going on, it was like big battle in Gaza City. Like Jews got ambushed like from 3 different directions. Like a couple of Jews died, a bunch of them were put in the hospital, and then they're like, oh, there's 4. And the Israeli Telegram channels, which are not immediately censored, particularly the military oriented ones where there's chatter, the Palestinians also look in on that, right? Like you can look in on it if you want to, like they're in Hebrew, but if you want, you can follow them. And if you like, a lot of these channels are complaining, like I guess auto translate is a thing on Telegram. I don't pay for Telegram, but if you do, you get auto translate, so you can peek in on all these different language pages, and all of these military-oriented Jewish sites for like military people or people in the military themselves or soldiers themselves posting about, oh, big problem, huge ambushes, and then the Palestinians themselves are like, well, we observe a lot of helicopters coming in and out to evacuate wounded to hospitals in Israel. And the rumor was there's 4 Jews that are unaccounted for. And then there's just nothing about it. Right. There's just been nothing about it since one resistance channel I saw reported that some Israeli channels had said that they were all fine and they were all back. They found them and they're all okay. And then, but no other resistance channels said anything about that. And I haven't been able to find anything else out. And certainly the media is not saying anything. And the Israelis put a strict military censorship on that incident. Whereas the mainstream Israeli media only reported that like a roadside bomb wounded 7 troops. And that's definitely not what happened, right? Like Times of Israel, that's all they reported on that whole thing. So as far as I know, there's still military censorship. But if Hamas did have them, I don't know how long it would take them to provide video evidence that they do have them, to put it out there. We do have more troops. And I was hoping that they did, because this would be the massive political and morale blow to Israel that would have been. It would have been like, and I think my personal opinion is that they don't have hostages and they got Hannibaled. That's my personal opinion. I think that they did have them and the Jews killed them. So as not to have the military problem or the political social problem of 4 other hostages. I mean, it's just conjecture, because it all the signs pointed to they had taken new hostages for like 24 hours, and then suddenly it was like, oh yeah, they're all fine, and then just nothing. So I think either they have them or they never had them, or they got them and they got Hannibaled, and I'm leaning towards that, but who knows? Maybe they never had them. Maybe it was all a big rumor. So who knows?
Yeah, the one thing I've noticed with the Israelis, they're very over-reliant on air power, decapitation strikes, drones, and a lot of other warfare, as opposed to like the traditional land-based model, which hasn't really gone away. If you look at like Russia, Ukraine, it has like quirks to adapt to like the 21st century, obviously, but it seems that they're very reliant on that. And like with respect to like Yemen, they can like do a lot of these decapitation strikes, but that is like what I like to call like the second graveyard of empires, which will require a conventional invasion. You already saw like that makeshift coalition of Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, and then like the US backing them, and then like the UAE and all that, try that, and like didn't work, which actually doesn't even augur well for that whole Abraham Accords or like Arab NATO coalition that they're trying to conjure up. Those countries are like worse than useless. Like they can't even like stop Qatar with regards to like that whole diplomatic crisis that Qatar was in 2017 to like 2020. And they can't even stop Yemen. Like they're like worse. Like those countries are dead weight.
Right. And they're also like, they're cowards. And it's funny because Yemen puts them to shame, because here you have like Egypt and Saudi Arabia. Egypt has a huge military apparatus, huge. It's all funded by the United States, and here you have like little Yemen and like the states still fighting Israel and like not being annihilated, although arguably Gaza is in the process of being annihilated, and it may still be, but it just all these Arab countries are put to shame, man. Like it's like, look at little Yemen here, and they're actually doing it. And of course the Saudis are trying to intercept their missiles, just like they were trying to intercept Iranian missiles. Like they're such backstabbing scumbags. Like the Saudis are scum. It's funny, I was like, oh, Mike, you just love Muslims. Like, man, that's not true. Like, I got like, but again, you don't want to hear the critique, because it's not just I don't hate all Muslims. it's like I have a nuanced view. Some I like, some I don't. But and I think that these particularly these Sunni Arab states that, again, I mean, look, you look at like what the Shiites are saying, what Hamas says, like they're railing against these countries all the time, just like shame, shame, shame. And you wonder, like, how the hell do they stay in power, particularly like Egypt? We all know about what happened with Egypt and the Arab Spring and Mohammed Morsi and Al-Sisi and everything, where basically, one wonders, like, what would happen if Mohammed Morsi was like still president of Egypt? Like, I don't know that we would be in the similar situation that we're in now.
Hell no.
I just don't think they would have ever allowed it to happen like that. It couldn't have, like, when that happened, when he was elected, I was like, that's never going to last. I just knew it. I was like, one, I know what's going to happen. When you give the Egyptians democracy, they're going to elect the Muslim Brotherhood. That's just a guarantee. Oh, they did it. Okay.
That's like the Sunni version of Khomeiniism, basically.
Yeah. I mean, look, Muslim Brotherhood is a mixed bag. I don't. I know that there was ties with Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood. I know there's some parts of it that are good, some parts of it that are bad. I'm not that expert on it, but I just knew when they did that in Egypt, when they were stirring up all that trouble, and they're like, "Oh, you have to have elections." They got rid of Hosni Mubarak. It's like, but it's funny. I actually didn't understand for a long time because I always thought of him as kind of a cuck for Israel. But he's not nearly the cuck that Al-Sisi is. I didn't understand. Like, he was like he still let them have Palestine demonstrations. He let them have pro-Palestine TV shows. You could have Palestine flags. You could make TV shows where Jews were the bad guys and such like that in Egypt. None of that happens in Egypt now. Like, none of that. Like, you do it all. Like, when they try and do a Palestine demonstration in Egypt, they have to run. Like, they don't. It's not because it's not like they're doing like a flat. There's like they have to do like Patriot Front like style, like flash mob shit. Like they have to like just run. Like, they just literally just like run through the streets so the cops don't just kill them. But yeah, it's crazy. And I don't know if you saw this thing that happened in New York City actually, where it's like Palestine demonstrators outside the Egyptian embassy, and they were Arabs. Okay, so I guess for whatever reason the Egyptians felt they had the right to do this. I don't know if they would have done it to like a white person or a black person or something like that, or an American citizen, or a non-Arab American. They dragged them in and they beat the crap out of them with chains and shit. And I'm like, how the hell is that legal? Like, that's one thing. It's like, okay, sure, that's like theoretically your sovereign territory, but if you're dragging people off the street, you're kidnapping them to another country and then like beating them. I don't know. But again, since they did it for Israel, no one's going to say anything. I don't think I've heard anything about that since that happened. But yeah, I don't know. I think that yes, this is the thing is, as you said, like this sort of the decapitation strike, just so everyone understands, like the Israeli ground troops suck really bad. And in fact, in terms of the Russia and Ukraine thing, without drones, I think Ukraine would have already been probably defeated as well, because the main thing that's slowing the Russian advance along that line of contact is just the drone swarms. Swarms are just drone strikes against the Russian positions, and then the need to go very, very slowly to counter them. And Russians have now gained the upper hand in this drone war, which was, again, given their logistic capabilities vis-a-vis Ukraine, always going to eventually happen. But yeah, the main thing that has helped Ukraine hold out as long as it has been drones. So the Ukrainians need drones as well. So drone warfare is still very active in Russia and Ukraine. But yes, the Ukrainians had, I don't know if they have anymore, they had a very, very, very capable, a very good ground army, and also courageous, the nationalistic, brave, willing to go fight. Like, I was politically aligned against them, but I have to respect them for what they were doing, But none of that's true for the IDF. Like, the IDF cannot fight. Like, the fact that they have blown up like everything in Gaza, and like Hamas is still regularly like taking out, ambushing, and killing Jewish troops at like the same basic rate as they have been. Like, if you look at the rate, like there's times when it goes down, but there's no trend down. You know what I mean? Like, there's periods of relative calm, but there's no trend down in terms of the casualties on the IDF that Hamas is inflicting. So they're no closer to defeating Hamas, and they themselves will tell you this. They're like, oh, Hamas is back at full strength in some places. In Gaza City, they're about to invade Gaza City right now. And this was sort of like... I
was going to ask you about that. What is it going to look like? It's going to be like a full-blown invasion?
I don't know, because they were kicked out of Gaza City in July of 2024, and they haven't gone back. Like, they did airstrikes, but they haven't gone back on the ground. This is the first time they've tried to go in on the ground to Gaza City since July of 2024. I think they had 3 operations there. Well, I was reading an article in the Times of Israel the other day about a battalion that had gone in like 7 times. and and they lost like 40 troops in Gaza City. I mean, that's deaths. I mean, not accounting, because we're talking about, if you talk about deaths, you got about 1,200 deaths on October 7th. You got maybe like 1,000 since then, and like 18 to 20,000 wounded, like irrecoverable, like like people lost legs and shit like that. They're not going back to the battlefield. So this is, I actually sort of like have a little bit I like to smile when I think about, like, okay, there's gonna be these Jews, these limbless Jews walking around Tel Aviv. But yeah, they are they're also, it's also like, it's such an odd, like, this is a big ambitious military operation for a not very good army, and one that's already been pretty chewed up and has lots of problems with morale, lots of problems with desertion, lots of problems with suicide. And now you want them to do this, and you're calling up like reservists for it. It's not, where they are, according to themselves, they are 12,000 troops short. Like they want 60, they want to call up 80,000, but they've only been able to call up 60,000. So that, to me, that's like 20,000. Maybe they think they've got 8,000 someplace, but they're saying we definitely are 12,000 short, and they're looking to try and get American and European Jews to go and join the IDF. Like, I might yield.
Are they trying to conscript Haredim as well?
That's never worked. Like, they are, and this is a big this is really schizophrenic thing about Israel, is that Netanyahu's coalition relies on Haredi parties. And that's not just necessarily, like, a lot of people think that might,
ultra orthodox. Yeah,
the ultra orthodox is something called Shas, right? That's kind of the ultra orthodox coalition in Israel. There's Jewish power, and there is religious Zionism, that's Smotrich and Ben Gvir. But I think those are like that's kind of like this settlement movement, which is slightly different than the Haredi movement. There's crossover with all of it, and those guys are also considered like ultra Orthodox Jews. But like particularly like all those guys live in the West Bank. Like, they don't live in Israel. They live in like illegally occupied territory in the West Bank that was promised to Palestinians at Oslo, right? These people, they live in territory B or something like that, and they're never leaving. So it's all just fake. But so yeah, like, those guys are slightly different than this Haredi thing, but nonetheless, I think it's Shas that is and if I'm wrong about that, I apologize if someone can correct me. But that's an Orthodox coalition that's also in Netanyahu's governing coalition, and they are always like, he's always like this thing. It's like there's this thing, he's teetering on the brink, like his government's always on the brink of collapse. If one other minister leaves, then he'll lose his majority, or like whatever plurality in the Knesset. I'm not exactly sure how it works. And then he'll have to call elections, and it never ends up actually happening, because they basically, in my opinion, what they do is they get together and they're like, all right, who's quitting this time? And it'll be Smotrich, or it'll be Ben Gvir, or it'll be somebody else, but it'll never do it all at once enough to make his government actually fall, because none of them want the labor Zionists, although I don't think that they would be capable of governing Israel. Like, I don't think you're ever going to get Yair Lapid or Benny Gantz in the prime minister's seat. I think it's just going to be Netanyahu. He's the only guy that can do it. Like, he's the only guy that can bring all these groups together and keep it together. He's got respect on all sides, and he has connections all over the world. And he's just like, he is like kind of he is their man. It's sort of funny that people accuse him of like Benjamin Netanyahu is like prolonging the war so he doesn't go to jail. Like, I don't think that's what it is. I actually think the corruption charges against him are chicken shit, and they don't mean anything. And it's just actually petty stuff from his political enemies. And he's actually doing what he's doing out of actually like Jewish supremacy fervor. Like, he's actually ideologically, he thinks if we don't kill all the Palestinians or evacuate the Gaza Strip now, they're going to come back. Like, this is an unmanageable problem. It's not going to, we can't last another generation. Just like when they started the war with Iran, he didn't do that to avoid corruption charges. If you listen to his speech when he started the war with Iran, he said, if we don't take out the Iranian state now, and he's like, you're probably going to have to, he's telling the people in Israel, you're probably going to have to live in bomb shelters for, we don't know how long. We don't know how long. I think they actually,
does it augur well for them in a multipolar environment?
It doesn't. It really doesn't. Like, that's the thing. It's like everyone, although nothing ever happens, people are always like, oh, you guys are always so wrong. And I'm like, no, it's just, you don't understand the glacial pace at which these things move, because I'm in my 40s. Okay. I'm in my late 40s. I'm an old man. Okay, I know I don't look it. I know I look nice and young. I know I look fresh faced. Nonetheless, I'm an old man, and I've been doing this stuff, Israel stuff, for 25 years. And man, if you were to tell me 25 years ago that there would be missiles just raining down on Israel, that the Palestinians would have staged a raid into Israel and killed like 1,200 Israelis and like taken out entire towns, I would have been like, what? Are you serious? I'm like, how's that possible? So it would have been unheard of, and yet now here we are. So yeah, they, despite everything, and what's his name? Greenblatt was out there a couple weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. And it was really when this stuff started with the Europeans saying we're going to do a Palestinian state, right? And I think Greenblatt was partly backing that effort because he was saying we're going to have some political program for the Palestinians. It's not going to include Hamas. And then that will lead to Israel normalizing with all the other Arab states, like above the ground, like above board, right? Because they've normalized with Saudi Arabia behind the scenes, but like above board, signing treaties with every single one. Like they're going to get one with Syria probably. Then he's saying even maybe Lebanon will normalize with Lebanon, normalize Syria, normalize. So then Israel just becomes integrated. And then he's like, then Israel just become integrated, meaning they'll be the dominant power in the region, integrated into the region. And of course, they'll have U.S. backing to be militarily superior over all neighboring countries, which is, by the way, U.S. law. I think just everybody understands there's U.S. law mandating that America make sure that Israel is more militarily powerful than all of its
qualitative military edge.
Yeah, the QQME is what it's called. Yeah. So so it's like illegal for America to allow Israel to get beat. But yeah.
One point I want to note as well in regards to Netanyahu being the only guy. I mean, given like his English speaking chops and his connections with just world Jewry and knowing how like the market and knowing how to market to the West, you put like some of these like Mizrahi types or just like these wackos, like those people would probably cause like some type of like institutional collapse within like Israel. They're just so dumb. Yeah,
they are retarded. Yeah. I mean, that's why I'm like make Ben Gvir prime minister, but
yeah, they have like no diplomatic chops to manage that type of relationship. Like Netanyahu is probably one of like the last of his like generation that could actually be able to pull that type of trick off, because a lot of these other dudes, they're just dumber, and also like that state's just becoming more welfare dependent. And all with all the Haredim. So yeah, they have to act now. I mean, it's really a strategic calculation, because even like look at other countries, like in the case like Turkey, which has like a total cuck leader and receptacle Erdo scum. Post Erdogan. Are you acquainted with the works of Necmettin Erbakan by any chance?
No,
he was like the prime minister that got couped in the mid to late 90s in Turkey. That basically Erdogan like ripped off a lot of his stuff. This guy was like a pretty hardcore, like at least like Islamist, and was already talking about multipolarity and stuff like that. But he got couped. His strain of thought in Turkey is starting to become really big, and if you look at the Turkish public in general, they're really anti-US and anti-NATO, and after like Erdogan's out of the picture, who knows what's going to happen there, like the long-term picture.
I mean, the thing is, like, you have to assume like Turkey's a police state, right? And so you don't know, and like I mean, if you look at public opinion in Turkey, it's like everybody hates Israel, like they bad, like a lot, and Erdogan plays that, like he lies routinely, like. And you wonder, like, I mean, I guess in Turkey they probably have their version of rightoids, or they have their version of people that are, just like I just like Erdogan because I like him. He says the things I like. He's based, and I don't. Oh, don't tell me what the actual policies are, right? So he says all this. He rails against Israel. He says all this crap, and Israel never really comes back at him, because he never stops sending Israel steel. He never stops sending them gas. They never stop supplying them with things that they.
Were those recent announcements fake that you saw, like about like Turkey breaking off like economic ties. It seems like kayfabe to me.
It is
like,
hey, whenever I hear that, I'm like, is that something that's happening, or is this something that Erdogan said, I will do this, I will someday, I promise, so it's like nonsense. Yeah, no, and dude, I see, I read all the Palestinian Lebanese channels on Telegram. They all roll their eyes at that crap too. Like, yeah, sure thing, buddy. Like we'll believe that when we see it. So nobody buys that. I mean, maybe in Turkey they probably do, but I don't know if they do it. I certainly don't. I don't know if they do anywhere else. But yeah, no, Erdogan. It's always funny because everyone's like, you see these people like they want to make Erdogan some mastermind, right? So they master chessboard play. No, he's just a cuck for Israel. You can always predict like you said, oh, he makes these unexpected moves. Like, oh wow, what a crazy thing, him backing HTS or whatever. He really wasn't backing HTS. They were backing something that's very much like HTS. They're calling SNA, which is like the Syrian National Army, which is allied with HTS, but I don't exactly know where one starts and the other ends. But nonetheless, like people were sort of saying like Israel's like cucking Erdogan when they were bombing HTS. And he's not going to do anything. Like, this is something like there are very predictable things about this conflict. The unpredictable elements are the actual resistance factions and Israel, right? Like the predictable elements are like Turkey, ISIS, Sunni Arab states. Like that's predictable. They're never going to do anything. Turkey will dude, the Turks and the Azerbaijanis now, they were assisting Israel against Iran.
Yes.
And Azerbaijan is like a Shiite state. So, but again, they're racially Turk. So again, race trumps religion again. But yeah, look, I don't like Erdogan. I don't trust him, and I don't like Elishayev. And I was saying like maybe it's time for regime change in Azerbaijan. But of course, the Armenians are also like their government are basically traitors.
Oh yeah, their government is awful. Yeah,
they're traitors.
Is a total clown. Yeah,
Pashinyan is a traitor. Yeah. I don't know. I hope that people are keeping up with the conversation. If maybe we know things that maybe the audience doesn't. But Pashinyan is the prime minister or president or whatever of Armenia. He's just given up pieces of land to the Azerbaijanis. They gave Nagorno-Karabakh. They've basically given up more and more land and territory, villages and territory to Azerbaijan. They've shrunk the size of their own state. And there was this corridor, I forget what it was called, 35-mile wide corridor where Armenia borders Iran.
And that's Zong, whatever corridor.
Starts with a Z. And so this was basically a pipeline that connected Iran by land, Iran through Armenia, which was traditionally Iranian ally, to Georgia, and the Central Caucasus republics, which are allied with Russia. So there's basically a land bridge from Russia to Iran. So you can understand why Jews absolutely want to sever this, right? And so they have been courting Pashinyan, and they've been telling him all kinds of things. And I think he's just he's either like a coward or a liar, probably both. But also, I think there's this thing like the Armenians were like, well, they are part of like the Caucasus, like the Russian NATO, like the Central Caucasus organization. Yeah. And they don't want to be though, or that's pleb, like that's considered pleb. Like we want to join like NATO, like that's the big boys, whatever, which is just very gay and short-sighted. And look at what it did to your country. Like you lost huge amounts of territory. You have hundreds of thousands of refugees had to be evacuated. You just basically gave everything up to the Azerbaijanis who have been the Azerbaijani state has been deeply infiltrated by Israel in the last several years. Like it's basically a Mossad outpost there. And it's funny, you can always tell when a country is being worked by Israel because they start having like historic celebrations of the ties with their ancient Jewish community there, and like Jewish museums start popping up there. And like all this stuff is like signs that just Jews are dominating your country. And that's all been going on in Azerbaijan for like the last 20 years. And it's because it's so strategically located. Like you don't realize it. You're like, what was the point of that? And then you go look at the map. Well, it's right north. It's got gas. It's north of Iran. And it potentially could, if allied with the West and Turkey, could cut off any land connection between Iran and the Soviet Union, sorry, Russian Federation. My bad. Excuse me. Same thing. But no, between Iran and the Russian Federation. So, which is hugely strategically important for Jews. And that 35 miles, and didn't they like lease it out to America?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
It's like, bro, like, what are you doing? And we all know during the 12 war, maybe we don't, but during the 12-day war, this became consequential because Turkish and Azerbaijani airspace was used by Israel obviously with their permission. I mean, they overflew Armenia, but the Armenians could have said, "Don't violate our airspace," and the Jews would have been like, "Yeah, sure thing." And they would have just done it because what are they going to do, right? What are they going to do? They're not going to do anything. They're not going to do shit. And they were then coming in to attack Tehran from the north. So a lot of people were thinking like, okay, they're flying, because that's not a traditional route. It's not a traditional attack vector for Israel against Iran. So they think you're like, okay, you're going to go like over Syria and Iraq, and you're going to attack the west coast or the western border of Iran. And the problem from that is you want to hit Tehran. That's a tough shot because one, long distance over unfriendly skies, particularly Iraq, and then you got to breach Iranian airspace. And I don't know what the range on some of these missile fired or jet fired missiles that the Jews use, because that's their weapon of choice. Like the Iranians like ballistic missiles. It all has to do with various strengths because Iranians don't have a great air force. The Jews do, and they don't have great ballistic missile capability. So it's like the two different strategies depending on the needs of each country. But the Jews do depend on their air force, their actual pilots, and they have these jet-fired missiles they do their airstrikes with. To get to Tehran, if you go look at a map from the western border of Iran, it's deep. You got to go deep to come out of from the north, go over the Caspian Sea, go down. It's like 20 miles, 20, 30 miles from the Caspian Sea is Tehran. So it's like very easy. They don't have to technically penetrate Iranian airspace. They can fire from over the Caspian Sea. And we all know this was happening because the Iranians started finding Israeli jet fuel tankers that were dropped into the sea, washing up on their shores like a few days after the war ended. So that was their attack vector. And that's why they were doing this bullshit where we've got total air supremacy. We can strike anywhere in Iran. Yeah. And it's like, no, you're just doing this thing, right? And that's just huge strategic advantage for Israel in that front, having those countries like that. So that's another problem. But yeah, and that's another thing that's boiling up again. The Iranians had a meeting with IAEA, and they said, we're not going to let you back in. They're like, you can go look at our civilian nuclear reactor in Bushehr, which is on the Persian Gulf. It's on the Persian Gulf coast of Iran. And it's a civilian facility for power. The Jews don't even bombed it during the 12-day war because it's Russian people are there. Like there's a lot of Russian personnel there because it's a joint project with Russia and Iran. And in fact, one of the things that America and Israel were so mad at Iran about was like, you don't use your refined uranium for civilian power. That's all provided by the Russians. What do you need to refine when your civilian power is provided to you by Russia? Well, everybody that knows about these things understands it's a bargaining chip. It's literally there to be bargained away. What they wanted to do was trade it for lifting sanctions. Like, okay, we'll stop if you lift sanctions. But it didn't turn out that way. Now, some people have criticized this policy, but I'm like, look, man, when the Jews target a country for overthrow, there's nothing that's going to stop them, right? Like, other than a hard power, right? Like you can't do diplomacy to get out of it if Jews want your country gone. If Jews want America to take out your government, the pressure will stay. You can never. There's no amount of democratic reforms. There's no amount of not enriching uranium. There's no amount of things you can promise diplomatically and agreements you can make, treaties you can make that will ever make that stop, unless you just change your government fundamentally to just be a proxy of Israel, right? That's the only thing. And since the Iranians just aren't doing that, they're just never going to be acceptable. They're never going to be acceptable to the West. So there's no point in playing nice guy. Like you might as well block. And the great thing about that policy is like, okay, the demand every time is just stop enriching uranium. And they haven't gotten further than that. And the Ayatollah always uses Saddam Hussein as an example. He's like, look at what they did with him. Every time he got rid of something, they gave another demand and then they invaded. It's like, all right, so keep enriching. But yeah.
I want to go back to one of the points you raised with regards to the whole Palestinian state proposal.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't
forward.
Yeah. But go ahead, yeah.
Put forward by several European states. Do you think that whole thing is just like a ruse? That's just like, that's not going to materialize into like anything? Because I've talked to some Palestinians who say this, that really hardened pro-Palestinian activists that say that a lot of this stuff, all that just happens is that it just radicalizes like the settlers, Israeli settlers, when those announcements go out, and then like nothing happens. But what ends up happening actually is this more settler violence kicks off whenever that those type of announcements are made, and like nothing concrete happens on the West part.
Yeah, that objectively did happen. I didn't actually make that connection, but that did happen. I don't know that you could say that the Europeans are trying to provoke that, but that is a consequence of it. I don't think the Europeans care. This was a Jewish effort. You would not have Macron saying this. I think he was the first one to say it, and a number of other European countries joining up, and possibly Keir Starmer was going to possibly join in. The Canadians joined in. You would not have this, because those countries are all run by Jews, right? Like you would not have them saying that. And then Jonathan Greenblatt came out and kind of like tacitly, he didn't specifically say that, but he kind of described something that was the same as ultimately what their proposal was. So I think this was a thing where the idea was, I think it was some sort of optics Jew attempt to reel in Netanyahu, because there is opinion. Now, most Jews in Israel, like 80% of them, want to just kill all the Palestinians, like wipe them out, remove them, cleanse them, whatever, right? That's just mainstream opinion. But nonetheless, they also have other things where they do not want their hostages or their POWs to die. And they know that the country is having a lot of internal problems because the war continues. They also know that they have external problems. They know how unpopular they are. They know that everybody hates them. They even feel like they're hated in America. Even the countries that give them political support, they feel like the people in those countries all hate them, which is true. Generally speaking, America probably being the least, the hating them the least, but the hatred of them is growing here. And the people that don't hate them are all geriatrics. So like, right wing or left wing in America, if you're under 40, you probably hate Israel. And if you don't, you're, it's lame, right? You're kind of a loser, like it's like, no, like you just, or everyone thinks you're like a shill, right? Like no one respects anybody younger than 40, or I would even say younger than 50, but definitely younger than 40 that doesn't hate Israel like that, or at least pretend to, right? You just can't get away with it. And that's eternally frustrating. So, like that's why the TPUSA and all that, it just falls flat. Like they don't convince anybody, like people will go and do that stuff for other reasons, other immigration reform or whatever the hell else they want from Trump. But like, no one's on board with that shit. Like everybody hates it. But, yeah, so there's a lot of reasons why the Jews want this to come to a halt. And I think that, the Western diaspora, I think this is an effort of certain elements, liberal for lack of a better term, liberal
foreign policy, like CFR type.
Yes,
like think take. Yeah,
I think this is an effort by them to kind of like put Netanyahu on a leash, basically give him something that's not an invasion of Gaza City. Because they don't want that. Like they're very worried about that, and they're also like the protests in Israel every day are crazy now. Like they had another one, and that's why I was saying, like, if the Palestinians do manage to capture and take prisoner more Jew soldiers, I think this could lead to some kind of mental breakdown, like inside of Israel, which is why I hope it happens. Because like I could just imagine their psyches just like cracking, because they're already at like the breaking point. And it would just be so discrediting to Netanyahu, and they don't have anybody else. So it's just like, it's just like keep ramping up those problems and I guess contradictions or just clash points, like what do you call these weakness points, these weak points in the whole thing that Israel has going on. Just keep stressing them, right? Like, that's my thing, is like, just keep that country under stress. Like, and that's why I can't stand people that are like, oh, it's not my problem, or I'm checking out. It's like, no, just doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't cost you anything. Just be against
make them sweat.
Just any pressure that can be applied. Anything. Like, at some point, I mean, maybe not, but at least this is the best shot we have. Just apply, just any pressure point, any like attack vector, any little fire you can put out. Like, why wouldn't you? Even if you're just throwing like a flashbang at Netanyahu's feet or something like that, why wouldn't you do that? You know what I mean? Like, you just do that. Like, if you're just giving him a hot foot, like light a match under his shoe or something like that, like, you might as well do it, right? We should be lighting as many little fires for these people as we can all over the place. And, so yeah, that's why everybody should just be against Israel. Like, there's just no reason not to be. It's just silly. It's retarded. But yeah, I think that whole thing was a scheme. I don't think it's going to happen. I think I was actually sort of worried about it, because if you actually looked at what was being proposed, it was basically like the defeat of Palestine. It would have been like actually the total defeat of the Palestine national struggle. Because what it was saying is basically, we'll give you a state, but it will be a nominally state, a state in name only, disarmed state. Hamas will be excluded completely. And they were even saying, some of them were saying like the Palestinian Authority would be excluded, although others were saying the Palestinian Authority would take over in Gaza. Others were saying it would be a multinational Arab coalition with like Egypt and the UAE and Qatar and Saudi or whatever. I don't know. Most likely Egypt bearing the brunt of that. But something like that. So essentially what that would be, then the Arab states coming and taking the pressure of occupying Gaza off of the Jews, which would be nicer. Like, they wouldn't be slaughtering and massacring because they're the same race of people. But still, it's like, it's letting a lot of pressure off of the Jews. And then they would be disarmed, no national sovereignty, no actual ability to dictate their own future. Israel would still control all their borders. They'd have no arms. They'd just be called a state, and everything else would just be total defeat. So I actually was looking at this proposal. Like, this proposal is basically like, well, how about you get everything? Israel gets everything it wants, and you get to pretend that you're a state, and then we'll end it. And that's just like, I don't, Netanyahu didn't go for it, and now America is so angry about it that they are not allowing the Palestinian Authority delegation to the UN has been banned from America. I don't know if you saw this or not.
Well, oh yeah, yes.
They took away.
Yes,
it's like, these are people with actual diplomatic right to come to the UN in New York City, and like, they're like, no, they can't.
Lord.
They're like, it's funny because they're like, well, it's not, sure, they can go to the UN, but how are you going to get there? You know what I mean? How are you going to get there? To get there, you got to go through America. You got to go through New York. It's not letting you do that. So it's just like, and Marco Rubio made an announcement where he said, this is what they get for doing this shit. He basically said, this is the Palestinian Authority's punishment for pursuing an alternate diplomatic track. Like, talking about this with the French and the Canadians and such like that, right? And he was like, no, you don't get to do that. And again, it's sort of like America very closely protecting this role as Israel's protector and the only and the arbiter of what is and is not any kind of diplomacy that goes on, which of course is just not fair. Like, how can you ever have real diplomacy when the arbiter, the only country allowed to be an arbiter and one that will protect its status as arbiter with force, is just in the pocket of one of the parties? And it's like, so you can go ahead and complain all you want when the Jews break their end of the treaties, which they do routinely. America's never going to do anything. Like in Lebanon, like the American guy up there, what was it? What's that general's name?
Barrack or whatever.
Yes. He's just like, I mean, the Lebanon one for Israel's broken that ceasefire like 5,000 times or something. Like something ridiculous like that. And at first they were like, they actually didn't for a while. There was like a couple weeks where there was a few things here and there, but not much. Now it's just like every single day or it's like there's like 5 violations a day. And the Lebanese don't even bother. And there was like one time when, for PR purposes, I put on TV a meeting with the U.S. envoy, and they were like breaking his balls about Israel breaking the ceasefire. And he was just like, "Oh yeah, well I guess yeah, that sucks, doesn't it?" Just totally unresponsive. He just did not give a shit. And it's just like, so yeah. But I don't know if they're going to actually. So that's another thing that's going on, is that America has gotten the Lebanese government to say they're going to disarm Hezbollah. They have not made any physical moves to do that yet, and you get mixed signals, because there's sometimes things I've read where the Lebanese army has said like, that's not our job. If the French want to do that, like they can do that or something like that. And then it's like, then other times they're like, we insist on it, but they always they insist on the right while never actually issuing a threat to Hezbollah that they will. So I don't know. I think that probably, if I had to guess, I think this will just be a stalemate. Like, there'll just be a thing that they bitch at each other about. And Hezbollah is kind of held hostage because of and Israel's fine with this, right? Because it at least contains politically Hezbollah to the point where they cannot attack Israel. It hurt Israel a lot when they opened up another front against them in the war to support Hamas. That really hurt Israel quite a bit. And so their ability to politically diplomatically neutralize Hezbollah was kind of big for them. Along with the fall of Syria, and which was just disastrous. That was just a disaster all along. Like, that was just one of the worst things that's happened in years. But yeah.
What are these rumors? Because you mentioned some of the Arab states with regards to the two-state solution, where I've been seeing some rumors, and this is very similar to what the UAE and some Gulf Arab states have done in Yemen with the Southern Transitional Council, of creating that little separatist entity in the island of like Socotra. What credence do you lend to the rumors of these Gulf Arab states doing the same in Palestine by creating these like little emirates and like statelets to undermine the Palestinian cause?
What, like in Palestine, or like?
Yeah, I've heard like some stuff like that.
I think, I'm sure that's something talked about. Like, all of these proposals are being talked about, but I don't think Israel in the end wants any of that. Like, these are all things that are like giving Israel like a huge W in hopes that it won't like go all the way. But I think Israel just wants to go all the way, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I think they just want to, they're not interested in that stuff, which is in a way terrible, but also like, in a way, like Israel then is in their own way, like they don't want these kinds of things, because now I don't know if the Palestinians want them either, particularly not the people in Gaza, who were the most militant of the Palestinian population. Although I'm sure that after 2 years of what they've been going through, there's plenty of them that are like, can you just make it stop? I know that there are. I see them saying things like this. I see people like, we just want this shit to stop. This is too much. We can't. The amount of trauma is I don't think anybody has suffered like this. Like, the amount of people losing limbs and children dying, people just blowing up randomly. Like, it's one of the worst things we've ever seen. I mean, it's really like people that come in like, that's just war. It's like, no, it's not. It's not. Like, this is not normal. Like, nothing is like this anywhere else. This is not what war is like anywhere else. Right? Like, and so they're relying on like phony ideas of what war is really like is a thing that, and I look, I know plenty of people. I mean, you'd be hard pressed to meet an American of my age that doesn't know tons of people that fought in the Gwat, right? And all of them are like, dude, it's nothing like, we would never have done anything like this. Like, even we're talking about America, and these are wars I didn't support. We're like, dude, we'd never, dude, and like that kind of shit. They're like, no, we would never have done that. Like, this is not what we're trained against, that kind of stuff. Like, we don't do that kind of thing. And it's true. I mean, the Air Force, that's where most of the stuff America does is, again, from the air and airstrikes and drone strikes and missile strikes and stuff. It's not the troops. They don't do that kind of stuff. But anyway, so it's not what war is like. That's some bullshit. Like, that's just to brush off. Like, this is a systematic attempt to exterminate a population. And there's just not a war then. It's not really a war. And you have a guerrilla group trying its best to, like, incur costs on the people doing that, you know? So, and sometimes they are incurring costs. And what's funny is that the Jews don't really want to fight Hamas, because when they do, they take losses. They just want to destroy things. They just want to, like, basically, you know, man, there were some videos I saw a couple weeks ago where, you know, this is how you know the IDF sucks as an army. They have guys in, like, civilian construction equipment, just, like, tearing down buildings. And their army, their soldiers, they've got, like, body armor and such on, like engineering corps or whatever. But they got, like, no protection. And if Hamas ambushes something like that, that's when you get one of these, like, squad wipes that they were doing, like Operation Gideon Chariots, which the Jews retreated from. That was the operation in Khan Yunis and Rafah.
Security incidents.
Yes. No, that was great. There was a period where, like, the reason, because we were talking about every day, there's, like, another one of these things, like 5-6 Jew soldiers are getting killed and a bunch of them are getting hurt. And then it stopped. It stopped because they pulled out. They not completely, but they stopped their Gideon Chariots operation, which was an attempt to push everybody in Khan Yunis and into this so-called humanitarian zone. Now they want to do the people in Gaza City. There's still 800,000 to 1 million people in Gaza City. So none of those people, because after the first ceasefire, after the ceasefire in January, all these people went back to Gaza City. You know, they abandoned the Netzarim access. They pulled out of it, and all these Palestinians went back to Gaza City, and the Hamas established, like, somewhat of a civilian government infrastructure up there, where you had somewhat of functioning things. I mean, everything was in rubble and very low level of existence, but you know what I mean? Like, they had policing and things like that and governing. And the Jews are like, no, that's not gonna be allowed. We're going to break that up and destroy that now. And we can't have that, because they wanted those people out. They want them all in, basically, they want to put 2 million people in a concentration camp and kill them or ship them out. And then, you know, now I'm seeing again, these reports are flying around, like, talking about building the Trump Riviera in Gaza and shit. I'm like, dude, that would be like, this Washington Post had an article on this again this morning about how this is something floating around in the Trump White House, is this plan for once the Palestinians are all evacuated to do this. And it's like, dude, can you imagine being complicit in something like that? Like, killing all these people and kicking them out and then putting, like, Trump luxury hotels and casinos and shit like that. I mean, it's not going to happen, but I don't think they'll successfully kick them out. Although I don't know. Right now, there is a proposal. The Palestinians have agreed to it. It met all the requirements that the Jews wanted when they were doing their phony ceasefire negotiations before they abandoned them a few weeks ago to decide to do their Gaza invasion, because they were in negotiations. And then they said, oh, Hamas is intransigent. We're going to invade Gaza City anyway. It's like, bullshit. You always were going to do that. Just like when they agreed to the ceasefire in January, they basically went out and announced, we're going to break this. I mean, Bezalel Smotrich went out and said to his own constituency who were mad about it, which is like the settler types, don't worry, we're going to break it. And he was saying, I'm not going to let that stand. Like, don't worry about it. And he was saying things like, I've gotten a guarantee from the prime minister that in 60 days we start the war again. In other words, they're just trying to get hostages back, and then they're going to start the war again. And there are Jews that are saying, and that's what the protesters in Tel Aviv want too. They want the government to come to some phony agreement to get the hostages back and then go in and kill everybody. Like, this is literally, there are Jews that advocate this. Like, there's this gay Jew IDF soldier on Twitter who he tweets, he's wearing women's clothing and dancing around doing weird shit. He's in the IDF, and he was saying this after they released a video of like the starving. You've probably seen him. He's really the caricature looking, like he's a white man cartoon come to life. Like everybody makes fun of him, but he's in the IDF and he does videos like from Palestine where, and he was saying like, why don't we just like agree to it, then we can come and finish the war later. So that's how they think, so it's like that's how they are. Like, they're just like, yeah, why don't we just lie now, just do what we want later. So yeah,
let's shift our gaze to the Western Hemisphere.
okay.
Do you think something's gonna pop off in Venezuela with that whole naval buildup in the Caribbean taking place?
I confess I have not been following that as closely, but I don't think America is prepared for what I don't think that there's going to be there might be some gay ops, but I don't know that we're going to actually do like some.
Yeah.
There's probably some pressure that they're putting on them. I mean, obviously we don't like Venezuela. Venezuela is allied with the wrong people. So again, Venezuela is another government. It's like, they're targeted. They want regime change. It's relatively lower on the list, but it's not that low because in a very important country, because it's like one of the biggest oil countries in the world. And so it's very funny because you get leftists who misunderstand U.S. foreign policy where they assume it's always about oil. Because we do often go after oil states. It's like, no, it's not that. It's not because of the oil. It's not because we want to steal the oil. It's because an oil state and a big one like Venezuela, a very big country, it's a large country, huge population, and lots of oil, that gives it the ability to not be a bitch of America. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's like the oil gives them the ability.
Most anti-Zionist state in Western Hemisphere as well.
Right. Yes, and that's because of the legacy of being leftists and whatnot. But it's also like the reason we don't like them. It's not like, oh, Venezuela has oil, we're going to attack. No, because Venezuela is an oil state, it can exercise sovereignty. Like countries with oil wealth can exercise sovereignty. We don't like countries exercising sovereignty. That's what we don't like.
One thing to note, because I'm from Venezuela and I've followed that stuff for the past few decades, the strategic situation for the U.S. in Latin America is getting pretty bad because for the first time in the Chavista Maduro era, Venezuela and Colombia are actually aligned. They have like a very leftist government now in Colombia with Gustavo Petro that actually broke ties with Israel. And for those who don't realize this, Colombia has been the U.S.'s most reliable security partner and a state that has routinely trained with Israel, has been aligned with Israel since the end of the Cold War.
It's one of these like right-wing death squad countries, that they always talk about. Yeah.
Dude, the U.S. dumped like close to $30 billion in like the so-called Plan Colombia deal to bolster Colombia's state capacity and fight cartels. And now they have a state that's not only like breaking ties with Israel, it's aligning itself with BRICS. And also Colombia historically too, outside of the rest of Latin America, it was generally been a laggard in terms of its trade with China, because every other country in South America, the primary country it trades with now, it's China. It's not the U.S. It's been a laggard in that, and I think it's changing now. It's about to join the Belt and Road Initiative. Yeah. And this is also another point to underscore. Hugo Chavez, despite being dead, kind of got the last laugh here because he's been trying to create a kind of Grand Colombia type of geopolitical project where it's alluding to the concept of Grand Colombia, the former nation that used to make up Colombia, Venezuela, parts of Panama and Ecuador. And now it's actually kind of coming into fruition in a de facto sense, not obviously in a territorial since in terms of the alignment. So they're scrambling. And I mean, that's why they propped
America
up
hates that kind of stuff, man. Like
that goofball Malay in Argentina, because they know like they're losing. And Brazil, even though they're pretty shaky, Lula is not so cut and dry. He's a hedger in the geopolitical sense, and Brazil's always been a hedge.
Yeah. Well, with Bolsonaro, they had briefly tilted, totally
Towards Russia.
towards Bolsonaro towards Russia.
Yeah, they actually were neutral on the Russia conflict with Bolsonaro for really
well.
Yeah,
true, but he was also very well connected in America and Florida and with Israel and such like that. And the neutrality on the Russia issue, because that was also Israel's official position for a while, because of the Syria stuff, and there was some nuances there, right? Like, because Israel was very, very careful with Russia in Syria, and they were always like, if you go look, like, in fact, there's a lot of Arab countries that are not that keen on Russia, like they don't entirely trust them. I think they're a little bit too suspicious, and they also Russia does have its own interests, and they were saying like, oh, Russia is always making deals with the Israelis, like they're communicating with the Israelis like around the backs of the Syrians, and all of that stuff. It's like that was happening, but they weren't like conspiring with Israel against Assad. They were trying to basically they're trying to contain things really for their own interest. And they were trying to keep the Assad state there and like not have a direct confrontation. What they really didn't want to have is Israel shooting down Russian planes or vice versa, because that could have led to a big problem. And they know that will lead to full blown American. I mean, look, no head of state doesn't understand who actually runs America, and that America is just like what Israel say. Like, if you don't understand that, you don't belong in the government of any major country or any country at all, right? And so everyone understands. They don't, for political reasons, they don't say it. But yeah, like again, Bolsonaro was probably neutral on the BRICS thing, but like I don't think he dove into like economically, but politically he was aligned with America and with Israel.
Yeah, one thing that was interesting with Bolsonaro too, and this, I think there's like a residual element of this in Brazilian geopolitics, because they're just like the typical middle regional power that will hedge a lot. Yeah. Whenever the 2019 Venezuela crisis kicked off, the military actually vetoed like straight up any proposal to like intervene in Venezuela, and that's the thing too with Brazil. It's also weird because in the same token, under Lula, Biden and co were able to put enough pressure on the Lula administration, the current administration in Brazil, to veto Venezuela's ascent into BRICS as well. So it's like very complicated there.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, Brazil cannot be fully trusted to be like a satrapy of the United States. And that just underscores the point that South America, it's like the U.S. is losing that region quickly.
Yeah. I mean, the Colombia thing is big. And what was it that was that with some politician was assassinated or shot in the head at least recently?
That was Ecuador.
Oh, it was Ecuador. I could have sworn it was Colombia.
Well, there was another assassination attempt, I think, in Colombia. Ecuador is actually one of the few countries that like is still a U.S. like satrapy, at least for not right now.
Well, this wasn't like a big politician. This was some local. It was like a rightist politician, and I think it was Colombia. He got shot in the head.
Yeah, Colombia. Yeah. You're right.
Yeah, it was like I only remember it because it was one of these things where, like, for whatever reason, like the neo-reactionary community in America like picked up on this, and they made it as if like it's again these people that think they're super red pilled on like leftism and like how leftists
Miguel Uribe.
Yeah, and they were like, oh, you telling me you understand leftism, and then look, this dude just got like shot in the head. I'm like, bro, shut the fuck up. Just like maybe that guy does like, did you ever ask them why he did it? Like you just jump me to conclusions. You didn't even ask why. But I don't really know. Yeah. I'm not that familiar with Colombian politics. I paid paying so much attention to like the Middle East and then Ukraine that it's like, it's like all my attention is taken up there. But yeah, I do generally sort of. People always say, "Oh, you commie, love brownoids or whatever." I'm like, no, I don't. If in conflicts between Venezuela and the United States, they support Venezuela's right to their own national sovereignty. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you libertarian guy, or at least you have roots in that. You probably weren't always thrilled with the communists in Venezuela, but like, nonetheless, I mean, maybe I'm putting words in your mouth. I don't know. Like that's
I don't really care anymore.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's I've told people that even if they were able to affect like some type of regime change, it'd be like a total shit show because the opposition in Venezuela is basically like a typical pro anarcho tyranny multicultural like libtard type of movement. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just cucks. They're just they're cucks for America. It's like I've known Venezuelan expats before too, and they're all like some of them have been like real big libertarian anti-communists, but I think once you get more seasoned in it, that's something they're kind of like a pleb, like early life thing. You know what I mean? Like it's like I don't know, but yeah.
I mean, one thing that a lot of people won't like to admit, and I tell a lot of Venezuelan people this when I talk to them, a lot of the crime problems in Venezuela is because like the opposition still is able to run local and even like state level governments. It's because like they suck at like enforcing a lot of those laws, and they're just always busy campaigning or taking U.S. money to campaign and
government. Like again, this is another problem, right? Because like if you're constantly involved in political gay-ops, then you just can't
govern.
You know what I mean? And like I would trust that the Maduro government would be more than like was it the freaking Fred Armisen joke, right, from years ago, like jail. Like I can. They were making fun of Chavez, right? Like that's like a lot of people didn't realize that that's who was making fun. There was a guy had like a Venezuelan military uniform on. It was a funny skit. I liked it, but like they were trying. That's who they were making fun of. But it's like, well, okay, it was very funny because then you get people in America like, wait, yeah, okay, sure, yeah, jail, yeah, good. Why shouldn't we do that? But yeah. So.
Now, with regards to, like we're done with that because there's not really much else of interest in Latin America because my time studying that, because that's what I generally like majored in when I was at university, is that there's not much really going on there of like note. Yeah. But with Russia, Ukraine, where do you see things going there? I mean, this has dragged on for a while, and I get the sense that there's not going to be some stupid negotiated settlement that Trump has promised and all that nonsense. Yeah. I never thought that for a second. And I've written multiple articles telling people this guy's not a Russia dove whatsoever. Like I had to break down.
He's not a Russia dove and he's not a peacemaker. He managed to get away with that reputation from his first administration. And there was a few things he did that were okay. In his first administration, there was a few things he did. Now, a lot of things he did I didn't like the selling the Tomahawk missiles to Syria and stuff. Although largely that stuff was symbolic and not particularly effective. But he also did cut off some United States money to rebel groups in Syria, which then there was there was big problems with that because then there was this whole offensive that drove them all. Dude, I remember in 2018, I was so hopeful that it was just going to end. And that they were just going to kill them because they had them all like cornered up in Idlib, and then the war just stopped. And I was like, "Why did you just stop? Just keep going. Just get them, kill them, go get all of them." And I was so disappointed. And then they for 7 years, they just built up a power base there, and then they bribed, and it was just the whole thing with what happened in Syria. But yeah, no, he was able to just take advantage of the fact that no major hostilities broke out when he was president. I mean, people probably forget now that we've been in major wars for 3 years now since February of 2022. So we're coming up on 4 years now of this major war all the time. That we are now being used to there always being war, at least as a background to the international situation, but that wasn't like big time, big hot wars. You know what I mean? are just becoming part of the international situation now. When they were not, there was a lot of conflict, a lot of shit was going on in Trump's first presidency, but it wasn't.
Yeah, he
like
laid
what it
the,
is now, you
the
know?
groundwork.
He laid the groundwork for a lot of it, man. People didn't know.
Yeah.
People don't realize.
They like in my recent article, the Judeo-accelerationist presidency, I pointed out that like he from like the embassy move from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to
yes,
just the whole Abraham Accords, that he's just laying the groundwork for like to bait Hamas into like attacking Israel. And then just with Russia, just look at all the sanctions he did in the first administration, withdrawing from those treaties, and then the lethal aid. I mean, he's trying to create like some type of security crisis.
And the Iranian thing, he did the Iranian thing. He withdrew from the JCPOA. So like just like torched that, and then of course like doing the so it's so Jewish, right? What he did is like, we pulled out, but we're still going to hold Iran to it, and it's like and then we also still get to consider ourselves like arbiters of holding them to it. You know what I mean? It's like what like, but yeah, I mean, the funny thing is like when you explain this to like people that like normies and such, they're like they don't believe you because it's like, wait, what? That's just no, it's that. Yes, it is that ridiculous. But yeah, so but Trump was able to sort of establish this phony reputation as a peaceful guy or a dove or whatever, and that's just bullshit. It's not true. And yeah, in terms of what's going to happen in Ukraine, I've been asked this question. I think the last time I was asked this question was like a year ago, and I said, well, I expect that eventually. Back then, what I said was eventually Russia will retake all of the areas they have annexed, the 4 provinces in the Donbass and in Zaporizhia and Kherson regions, and those four areas, they will take them completely, and they will then there will be a line of contact there, and it will just never be recognized, and there will be like a North Korea situation or something like that, right? Like a Korea situation, like it just. Like that will be de facto Russian. It'll be integrated into Russia, which is of course a massive blow to Ukraine because that's like the main industrial part of Ukraine. And there's this thing. It's sort of like in Ukraine. The thing is, right now they're coming up on is it Donetsk province? Like Slavyansk and Kramatorsk, like these 2 last big cities. And that's actually those cities actually were partly where the rebellion started back in 2015, and they got defeated there, and they had to move east. But like that's the reason that the Russian one reason among many the Russians have been moving so slow. Part of it's the drone war is just because of the massive urbanized landscape they're moving through there. And once you get to past those 2 cities, and then like Zaporizhia in the south and a few other conurbations down there, it's all open land until you hit the Dnieper. With like there's Kharkiv and then Kiev or Kharkov, I guess everyone's used to call.
That's good. Yeah,
Kharkov, right? It's like funny. It's funny. I use the Ukrainian name for that one, but I still use the Russian name for Kiev. But it's still Kiev. Anybody trying to pretend like that's not Kiev is like just shut up. Like that is a world famous city. It's not Kiev. It's like that is a world famous city. Everybody knows about it. It's always gonna be Chicken Kiev. It's Kiev. Like it's gonna it's always gonna be that.
We're gonna transmogrify those names.
No, it's silly. But I don't know now. I mean, I was thinking that was what was gonna happen. Now I'm not so sure because I can see that that's what America wants, and that's what the Western powers want, and that's what Donald Trump was trying to get. Like, because their main thing was unconditional ceasefire, and then we can sit down and have diplomacy. So this is what America always does, and Israel does this too. And it's just like this. It's like a Jewish thing. It's like they're like, you have to give us everything we want, and then we can have negotiation. Or it's like and the Russians don't take American diplomacy seriously. We know that they don't. They didn't take the Alaska summit seriously. They went there. They had like kind of a laugh. Like, what was it that the Fox News lady was saying? Like, Vladimir Putin came in, gave a speech, and left. And like, just and there was just nothing. Like, I don't know if you ever saw that, right? Like, there was that. So it's like, And she was like, no, this didn't go well at all. Like Trump, because, people think like Trump is going to like mog Putin or something like that because he's so much taller than him. He didn't mog him. Like Putin came in and he basically like wide walking Putin like rolled in and he just like laid down like here's what I think. He spent most of his time talking about the historic connection of Alaska and Russia, and then like went home. And so it's like, all right, I mean, what happened there? Nothing. And so what the demand was unconditional ceasefire, and then we'll lay the groundwork for like final status negotiations. That's never going to happen. Like the problem is America has a few things. One, they just can't. They can't. It's almost like, I don't want to say it's like when winning so long we can't conceive of losing, but it's just like they just pretend like we're just not. Like we just pretend like realities. This is one of the things that sometimes I wonder if I have been gaslit, right? And I wonder if I've been like gaslit by looking at opposition propaganda, like materials friendly to Russia, materials friendly to the other side. And if America actually knows something or has a different calculation, but then in the end, it always ends up being what I thought it was going to be, so it's sort of like, yeah, no, we actually can't do these things. Like Alexander Mercouris at the Duran has this thing he talks about whenever there's negotiations with America, where he says what America does. And this is really like Jews, right? Because what he's really talking about are different factions of Jews. These are the American diplomats and interest groups interested in the outcomes of these conflicts in the West. Different countries or various interest groups or factions of people with various different interests in these outcomes. They sit down and they negotiate amongst themselves about what the demands that they will make will be when they go to do the diplomacy with the other side. And they think that's the negotiation. So like, so, you know what I mean? So like America sits down with America, with the varying opinion in America, like the think tanks and the scholars and the foreign policy people and these different groups. They sit down, they hash it out amongst themselves. Like, okay. And then in the end, what happens is the demand issued to Russia ends up just being like, let us win the war, because that's what it was. That's what it was. It was literally like they're like, yeah, we're fine with the ceasefire, but the first thing you have to do is basically give back all the land and give back Crimea, and then we're willing to do unconditional ceasefire. In other words, just like, yeah, let us win. So it's stupid, right? And right now, why would the Russians stop? Because this is the risk of stopping. If you stop, and this is sort of like, it's somewhat a little bit of a bind for them, although certainly I would say Ukraine is in much worse bind, which is that if you stop, all you're doing, and we have experience with this, Vladimir Putin has been bitten by this before, Syria, biggest example. Other examples, like if you stop the kinetic war, the hot war, and you freeze it for humanitarian purposes, fewer people dying, stopping the war, like economic purposes, let things calm down. It's always good to want to stop a hot war, right? All that happens is America just starts preparing for the next one.
Yes,
just
Maidan, post Maidan,
yeah,
Minsk.
Yeah, so it's like you agree to something, and it's like, oh, they just use that as a pretense, and just look at Iran, right? Like using negotiations as a pretense to launch attacks. Like, it's just, you cannot trust this country, and particularly after what they did to Iran. Like, why would you go? There were people that were like, "Yo, they're gonna kill or arrest Putin."
Yeah,
I was like, "Well, America's not a signatory to the ICC, but nonetheless, like they're not going to do that." And if the Russians had an idea that they would do that, they would not have sent Putin. That's one of the reasons, actually, funny enough, that's why Putin doesn't go to Brazil, or he didn't go to the BRICS meeting in Brazil, because they are signatories to the ICC. And I guess he didn't want to put them in that position. Although, funny enough, Benjamin Netanyahu is under warrant by the ICC too, and all these European countries have just said, yeah, we're going to just not enforce that one, which is like,
Sovereign is exception. Yeah.
Well, it's amazing because I remember, like, you know, Lewis, right? Lewis and I were driving over Christmas, right? Like almost a year ago now. We were driving to a Christmas party and we were listening for just a joke. Some leftist, we listened on some leftist public radio, like leftist radio station, right? And AM radio station for communists, like I think Pacifica, some Pacifica type affiliate in America. And they had this young Lebanese descended woman from Australia who was like some big human rights attorney and activist. And she was so excited about the ICC warrant against Netanyahu. And she's like, it's a huge breakthrough. It's groundbreaking. And these European countries are going to have to enforce it and they're going to have to respect it. And if they don't, like all these institutions that they've built for so long are going to be discredited and stuff. And I was like, how old is this? I was like, she's like 24 years old or something like that. And I was like, my sweet summer child, let me tell you something. Like, they are not going to enforce.
Slapped by reality. Yeah, cocksmacked by reality of like.
You kind of hate to hear it because she's like this bubbly, young, extremely optimistic. But I'm just like, listen, sweetheart, it's not real. Like, stop. It's not real.
Yeah.
Like, just no, they're not. They run shit, man. That they are the sovereign. So yeah, I don't know. But what do I think will happen? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you think they're gonna end up like taking Odessa?
I think they might take the whole thing, man. I don't want to predict it.
Oh, the whole thing.
I don't know, or maybe at least back to Kiev and then leave because even that rump state will be used for future attacks. You know,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's gonna be like a bigger version of Albania. Like, is this gonna like? Yeah,
the only thing is
dirty war.
The one thing is that the reason I don't think they would even want Western Ukraine is because the people there all hate them. Like in Eastern Ukraine, it's not like that, right? Like in fact, most of the Azov battalion was in Mariupol, but they weren't from Mariupol. Like they were Western Ukrainians, right? And like the people in Mariupol were pro-Russia. They didn't like Azov being there. And that's largely the case for the civilians in that part of Ukraine. Most of them voted for Yanukovych. Yes, Yanukovych. He was he's a pro-Russian candidate.
Yeah, the Yanukovych guy. Yeah. Eastern. Yeah. Actually, there's some people I've listened to, like Russians with Attitude, and they kind of said this before that in 2014 had Russia already gotten its like economic and military house in order, it could have just walked into Eastern Ukraine with little to no resistance.
Well, like what they did to Crimea, they could have just taken the eastern half of Ukraine like in the same fashion, and that's probably true. They didn't have I don't think they had the logistics to do that at that point. Right? But also like they had the gear and the army to do it even then, although they're much stronger now than they were then. But they just didn't have the shit ready to do it. You know, like they didn't have the tanks and the troops ready to do that. But yes, because they had some early fights, even in the Donbass war in the beginning of the rebellion in Eastern Ukraine, where man, they defeated. Like the Ukrainians were shit then too, right? Like they were. It's really funny. Like in the intervening years, like since Maidan, both countries' armies like became like souped up. You know, like the Ukrainians.
Yeah. I mean, Ukraine basically.
The Ukraine is the best army in Europe, man.
Yeah, it's the best army in Europe. It became a NATO proxy force, and also that period as well. That's when they really psyoped a lot of the Ukrainian population and brought all that LARP nationalism there that really turned them into not just like a fierce fighting force, but also an ideological force to boot.
I will say this: that existed before. They did ramp it up, but that had existed before. There was a long-standing Gladio operation in Ukraine. You can go back and look at Soviet propaganda, and the funniest shit, I swear to God, I don't know if you've ever seen this. I'll try and dig it up. Soviet propaganda posters from the 70s about Ukrainian nationalists that shows like a hook-nosed Jew leading by the hand a dumb Ukrainian in like Cossack uniform with swastikas all over it. and they're like, this is Ukrainian nationalism, and they always attach it. They put the swastika and the Star of David like side by side, and again, you could look at that one way, but which could annoy you if you are an admirer of Nazi Germany. But if you understand what they're commenting on, that's actually correct. You know what I mean? Like that they're actually right. That like, yes, I mean that political cartoon showing. I'll see if I can find it. It's very famous. I don't know. It's actually not so famous, but it's well known. Have you ever seen it? It's very funny. I've tweeted it a few times, but
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah,
yeah. So, like looking back, like even like Stepan Bandera,
he was CIA operative, man.
Yeah, he was willing to play ball, and even I think was willing to work with Jews as well.
He had a Jew in his thing, dude.
Yeah.
The biggest myth is the idea that the was it OUN? It was a Nazi group. It wasn't. Stepan Bandera between 1941 and 1944 was imprisoned in Sachsenhausen concentration camp in Germany.
Yep.
For being somebody untrustworthy. The Germans did not trust him. Like the National Socialists did not trust him. Like the thing that they always pull out, the leftist pro-Russia people or leftist anti-Ukraine war people, like again, everybody's always Nazis, right? And they never want to hear the truth. And I have told people this, and again, I've gone blue in the face. Same way I'm like, Israel isn't Nazis, Ukraine isn't Nazis. You know what I mean? Like, let's get the story straight on the actual history of the National Socialist government. Stepan Bandera wrote an article, or he wrote a letter, a very obsequious letter to Hitler when the Operation Barbarossa started and the Eastern War started. And the Nazis initially were looking into this group, like, is this group we can work with? And they went and they made some contacts and they dealt with them a little bit. And they came to the conclusion, these guys we can't trust them. They're lunatics. They're crazy. They're violent. They're unpredictable. And they're hoodlums. They're criminals. And we can't trust them. And so they then started a guerrilla war against the Nazis as well. And that's when the Nazis put Bandera and a bunch of his deputies in Sachsenhausen. And they released him. What's funny is they like released him at the end of the war as like literally like they released him into the Russian occupied territory because they knew he was going to go and cause problems for them. It was sort of like a fuck you, right? But then immediately what does Bandera do? Well, he's working for the CIA. He spent far longer as an asset of the CIA than he ever did as an asset of the National Socialists. Mm-hmm. So that's the truth. I don't even know if Ukrainians know this history, but I do know that there is this funny mixed bag where they seem to like imagery of it and things like that. But then there's also some people in those groups that they like Israel. Like I wasn't the Azov Battalion. It was the what was the other one? Right Sector. They call themselves the other group. The Ukraine.
Yeah, I think so.
They had the red and black flag was their thing, right? Which is cool looking flag, right? They had Jewish elements in their group. Like they had a synagogue and they had Jewish commanders and stuff. And they had a right sector flag with a Jewish star on it and stuff. So they were really tightly aligned with Israel, that group. And frankly, Israel's been working with Ukraine the whole fucking time. And like, I can't believe the Russians didn't know that. Like they had to have known it. And, you know, the rumor is that big drone attack on Russia that they did a few months ago now, where they supposed to, I think they did some drone strikes deep into Russian territory and took out some jets at their airfields and stuff. The rumors are that the Israelis helped them with that. So, you know, Israel has been like this with the Ukrainians, since the beginning. And of course, their biggest backers in America are all like neocon Jews, like the Kagan family and the Institute for the Study of War and all that shit. Which, man, I read that stuff. You ever read the Institute for the Study of War? You ever read that?
Oh, it's total cope.
It's like, what am I reading?
Yeah.
I'm like,
about
it's like
Judeo-liberal headcanon.
Yeah, no, that's what makes me think like these people actually don't, they can't on some level. Like, because I'm like, who is this for? Because it's one thing to put out propaganda for plebs to keep them motivated for the war or something like that, right? Or for the conflict. But when you're scholars of war, like your think tanks and the people studying it and coming up with strategy, and like when they are saying this to each other, like who are you propagandizing? Like who is this for? But yeah, it's wild the stuff that they're saying. Like, yeah, it's amazing. But yeah,
dude, Actually, it's a tangent. Do you think that the Kagans may be distant relatives of Lazar Kaganovich?
Yes, in spirit, if not in reality. But I have noted that they have the same root word. Lazar Peinovich, the Soviet official that did the Holodomor for reference purposes. Yes, I think they are probably. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it could be. I mean, first of all, remember, Jews, Ashkenazi Jews are such a homogeneous genetic group that they are almost all related. What's the word? There's a term that is used for people who are not. They effectively are. Every Jew is related to Lazar Kaganovich. At least every Ashkenazi Jew. There's a term is in Kevin McDonald's book that they use for a group with a tiny founder population, where they're like all the other people in it are like your cousins biologically, even though they're not your actual cousins. Nonetheless, they're that genetically similar to you because you just are all coming from the same small stock of people. So you have these people who are really biologically, genetically similar, despite not being like close family relations. And Ashkenazi Jews are absolutely like that. So they even if not direct bloodline, they are related to. But I think they might be bloodline related. It would be something worth looking into. Although I don't know how you'd find something that. I mean, maybe you could just find it out. But yes, the root word there of Kagan is interesting and notable. So yes. I've actually been saying that for a few years. I've been throwing that talking point out there, just like, you were oppressed by a Kaganovich and now you're oppressed by a Kagan. Wise up. But yeah.
What about these? Because I think one thing that the Ukraine conflict, well, I'd even argue the Georgia conflict as well, it has really dealt a blow is to the holy sacrament of territorial integrity. And as a result, now the idea of like the liberal international's order's commitment to maintaining borders and all that is just slowly withering away. Do you think that if Russia continues making gains, they may cut deals with countries like Hungary or even Poland to give away territories to like a dysfunctional Ukrainian state to
Hungary doesn't want to do that. Hungary wants Poland. The people in Poland don't like Ukraine because of the terrorism that was being done by Bandera and his groups because of the sort of Ukrainian revanchism that they were doing. There's like, again, Lviv or Lvov, you could call it, what is it? It's like, it's like broke is like Lviv, woke is like Lwów, ascended is like Lvov, and like galaxy brain is like Lemberg. I don't know what it is. It's like, you know what I'm saying, right? But it's like, is it Lviv? Is it Lvov? Is it Lwów? It's Lemberg. But which that everyone understands. I mean, those that get it. But I don't need to go further. But yeah, no, like I know that the there's just bad blood there, and although again, I think that could easily be suppressed through propaganda, and neoliberals, police states can keep that kind of thing from, particularly if the people are white. The Ukrainians are kind of an unruly group, but I don't think so. I don't see Poland giving up territory. Why would they? And the Hungarians are like, we want them to give us territory. So I don't.
No, that's what I meant to say, that they would cut a deal to get like.
Oh, to transfer territory to those states, give Ukrainian territory to those states. That might be, that I could see. I couldn't see it going the other way. No.
Yeah, no. Sorry to clarify. I just wanted to clarify that.
But I think the problem is though, then that introduces a thing where now they might want to do that because they're like Russia won't, but Russia doesn't really have any intentions of doing anything to Poland. Right, like they're not. I don't think that they this idea that of Russia's like expanding in. That's not. I don't. That's not what's going on.
No,
like that's bullshit. They didn't even care about Ukraine. Like the Ukraine war, there's all that shit could have been avoided. Like you could have just not done Maidan. You could have just kept, which is so funny because they talk about like the Ukrainian constitution, and like they're like Zelensky's like Ukrainian constitution is not going to allow us to give up territory. It's like, oh. okay, you care so much about the Ukrainian constitution. Like now, like, okay, cool, neat. That's nice. The Ukrainian constitution. Yeah, that's a thing. That's a thing that's real that people give a shit about. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, okay, sure thing, pal. But it's like, I could see them maybe doing that. But the territorial integrity thing, it's like, well, at the same time, you call them territorial integrity, but you're just like, well, everywhere except one little place where there's no territorial integrity there, right? And it's not even just Gaza or West Bank. It's like Syria. It's anywhere. And Lebanon, like those countries don't have any right to territorial integrity. Like Syria and Lebanon certainly don't. That's a thing. That's just a containment thing. I mean, one of the funny things is some of the more propagandistic things that the ISW puts out. Like I was reading this one, man, there's a hilarious article they had about Russian cognitive warfare. And they tried to like distinguish it. It was so stupid. They tried to like distinguish it from like information warfare. They're like, it's like information warfare is like dealing with bits of information and facts. Like cognitive warfare is dealing with like mind spaces and worldviews and like outlooks. And for too often, like the Russians have they have been trampling us in this area where we've allowed them to get into our headspace and make us think that their idea of like a Russian sphere of influence and Russian interests are legitimate things to worry about, or that Russia is really threatened if Ukraine joins NATO. We've allowed ourselves to be convinced by these things, and this is cognitive warfare, and we have to like it's almost like religious. It sounds right, like, but yeah, it was very funny because they were saying like Russia needs to use cognitive warfare because they don't have the physical capabilities to back up what they're doing, so they have to supplant. They have to like force enhance with cognitive. I'm like, what country doesn't do that? Well, you think America doesn't do that? Like, we're constantly waging like narrative warfare. Like Israel's the biggest one. Like, and Israel, like you could legitimately say that for Israel. They may need massive cognitive information narrative war in order to make up for their physical shortcomings of their state, like what they cannot accomplish physically. So anyway, I'm just very silly, but yeah, maybe I again, it's hard to call because when you have here's one of the things that's unpredictable about all this, right? Whether it be some kind of final settlement in Gaza or a final settlement in Ukraine, is that like, and even in Iran too, right? Like, how do you ever get Jews to take L's? The Jewish refusal to take a calculated L for the betterment of everyone, like an actual compromise, right, is a massively destabilizing thing. So this is something I was thinking about. Like when you think about everywhere Israel has attacked since October 7th, they've attacked 9 separate countries. Okay, since October 7th. Okay, just
yeah.
So like and so and when you think about like for Netanyahu, and then the thing is like they've also done shit that I didn't think that they would do. Right, like that, and that maybe in a previous time when they didn't feel pressured by something like October 7th, they would have not risked it, like assassinating Nasrallah, trying to take out the entire Iranian government. Now we have assassinating all these government ministers in Yemen. But for Jews, their perspective is, well, one, let's see if we can do it, and if we can and don't get pushback, that means that we can. And the bargain for us of the risk for us is greater, they calculate, in not doing it, right? Whereas typically other groups, even if they're shitty people, bad people, underhanded, scummy, greedy, awful people, will calculate more conservatively than that. They'll calculate, well, a risky thing like assassinating the entire cabinet of a foreign country, I don't know. There's a big benefit to that, right? You know what I mean? Like, what do we get out of that? Why would we do that? Even if we hate this government, right? But bless you. But for the Jews don't. But for them, it's always the highest risk thing is worth it for them, and this is why it is so unstable. And you could see this in domestic policy as well. Like, why do you want to antagonize the white majority so much, right? Why are you doing Black Lives Matter stuff? Why are you having mass immigration? Why are you taking this generally happy population and ruining their lives all the time? Like, why are you doing this? And it's like, well, because for them, the risk of not doing it is worse than there's a profoundly destabilizing thing you could do. But for you, the risk of not doing it is worse. This is the fundamental reason why Jews are such a destabilizing factor and why they can't have sovereign power. That's why they have to be driven out, because this is their this is the kind of calculation they make. Like, you could probably sit down with, for certainly Russia are rational actors, and North Korea are. Like, there's no adversary that you can think of. But with Jews, it's like, no, they're not. They don't calculate like any other group. For them, maximum pressure, highest risk pays off, and not doing it is the bigger risk. So it's like they always are pushing, constantly pushing everywhere. And they eventually, and part of it's because they've been doing it for so long that if they let up, then they're fucked. Like, it's almost like, what happens if Israel stops attacking all of its neighbors? Well, they might just be fucked. So this is why I'm saying, as the world needs to deprive these people of sovereignty. Like, this is the most important political project, because this is fundamentally destabilizing. The fact that you couldn't come to any, it's in nobody's interest not to settle the Ukraine-Russia's war, except for like a very few people. And why do they get to make that choice? Like, the Ukrainians, is not in their interest. The Russians, is not in their interest. They would like to settle if they could trust a settlement, which is why they've agreed to many things in the past, even though they got played, because for them, the best thing was some kind of a settlement. But America, run by Jews, no. There's no reason that they see now why they should ever give any ground on anything or take any L, even in like a on behalf of stability and not like having a war and lots of people dying and economic problems. It's like, no, it's always fine. We'll just keep going. It's destabilizing. It's the biggest problem in the world. That's why these people literally cause all wars. So,
yeah, that's actually the funny thing when you've gotten into the international relations space. Like, when I did so almost like 2 decades ago, you'd always be told like Iran is an irrational actor. But once you get in the know about all this stuff, you realize that that's just pure projection. The real irrational actor.
And you also realize that a lot of the people that write and think in that space don't think that they are. Like, that's it for the newspapers. You know what I mean? That's for the media. Like, but when you look at what, and I'm not even talking about just Mearsheimer and Walt, like they do the best work, but like, you have, at least in the space of still well-respected people in that area. But, there are plenty. The Institute for the Study of War is an outlier because it's totally Jewish, and it's nothing but propaganda and nothing but jingoistic, like blood-curdling, like pro-war propaganda coming out of them. Whereas other, and it's also why you end up having these guys, right? You get like these guys like Michael Scheuer, Phil Giraldi, and stuff that are just like, or Larry Johnson, who are like CIA analysts, and then no, dude, they just go and join like antiwar.com because like this country's fucking retarded. Like, the way we work, it doesn't make any sense. So yeah.
Well, I think this is a good spot to wrap this up, Mike. But again, thank you for coming on to the show. But before we leave, just tell the audience where they can follow you and your latest content.
Oh, sure. Yeah. It's as always on the rightstuff.biz, 5 shows a week. Usually some every other week it's 4, but I'm almost always doing like, you'll catch 20, 25 hours of content a week if you go to the rightstuff.biz and sign up. You can get half of that for free, but I would appreciate if people did sign up, so we could put food on our plates. And I also have I tweet at Tom Belaviv with an underscore, but it's just my picture and it says Mike P. You probably can find it. Managed to get over 5,000 followers now this time on this account. I've only had it for a couple months. We'll see. It'll probably be banned. I'll have to start again. But I had 7,000 on my last one, and it's like,
or you'll become a Substack Chad in no time.
Oh, dude, I have a Substack. I actually only have one article on it, and I want to write more, but I podcast so much. And I often think I'm like, I podcast too much because it's like, as a big podcast library, a legacy. No, you need to have written stuff for a legacy. So I need to write a book before I die. I will. I have to. If I don't, it's like, what was the point? But so yeah, I do have one Substack. It's an old article. I want to update it. It's about the Israel and the refugee crisis. It's still valid. The information's all still up. It's all still valid, but there's more I could add.
All right. Well, to my audience, thank you for tuning in. And with that, El Nino has spoken.